Hey everybody, we are in Isaiah chapters 36 and 37 today, and man, what an amazing set of chapters. There's so much going on here. I don't know if I can pack it all into one little devotional, but let me try. So, if you've done the reading, Isaiah 36 and 37 is what's called historical narrative. So it breaks from these sort of prophetic sermons that Isaiah gives to talk about a moment in history. And when the king of Assyria, Sennacherib, has come to Jerusalem, he's been sort of conquering his way through the ancient Near East, and he's conquered all these outlying villages in Judah. And we have historical documentation to prove that. Here's a picture of an ancient relief of the Assyrians of the sacking of the Judean city of Lachish. So this is an event that actually happened. So this king had invaded all these different sort of kingdoms around the ancient Near East and had conquered all these outlying cities in Judah, and it was now at the doorstep of Jerusalem. And he threatens the king, Hezekiah, and says, why don't you stop trusting in other nations like Egypt or in your God, Yahweh? Don't you know there's no escape? No one can escape the king of Syria, so you might as well just turn yourself over to us. This account also gets retold in several other places in 2 Kings chapters 18 to 20, and 2 Chronicles, in the book of Micah as well. And we have all of this historical documentation to talk about this event. And so this is one of those things where the Bible is clearly proven true. When it talks about historical accounts, certainly the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible here, interprets history through its own cultural and theological lens. But the fact remains that this event happened. It's true. The way that Jewish scriptures communicate truth is in history is true, and this is one of those historical narratives that we have to prove it. What we learn is that Hezekiah at first is scared and gives over a tribute. This is told in 2 Kings, where he sort of strips the gold from the temple and the silver from the temple, and he gives it to the king of Assyria, hoping that will sort of keep him from destroying Jerusalem and to leave them alone, but that doesn't work. The king wants to take over, and he calls for Hezekiah to surrender, and if he doesn't surrender, well, he's going to be wiped out. But he makes all these promises saying, your God cannot deliver you, and in fact, your God sent me to you, so you should stop trusting in foreign powers, stop trusting in your own God, and instead just trust in us, and it might go well for you. Hezekiah then freaks out a bit, but he has this deep faith and trust in his God, in Yahweh, and he calls for a period of lament and mourning, and he sends for Isaiah and asks Isaiah for his guidance and his wisdom. And in Isaiah says, Yahweh is going to protect you because of your great faith and trust. He's going to deliver this city, and in fact, the king of Assyria, his army is going to be entirely decimated. King Hezekiah then prays a prayer of faith and thanks, and the situation plays out exactly as Isaiah had said it would. Now, the interesting thing about this passage is that it's the sort of the opposite, the mirror image to what takes place in Isaiah chapter 7. In Isaiah chapter 7, at the exact same place where the delegation Hezekiah sends to meet Sennacherib's little emissary, where they're debating these terms of surrender, at the pool outside of Jerusalem, Isaiah meets with King Ahaz, Hezekiah's dad, at this same pool. And a similar situation is happening. Another neighboring kingdom, Aram, has allied with the kingdom of Israel in the north, and they are threatening to invade Judah and take over the kingdom. Ahaz freaks out. He calls for Isaiah. Isaiah comes and he says, don't worry. If you trust in Yahweh, then God will deliver you. God will send you a sign, the sign of the virgin who gives birth to a son, and this son is going to be able to take care and establish justice and rule with power and authority. But Ahaz does not believe Isaiah. He rejects that idea. He says, no, I can't trust in this God. I don't believe he's going to protect me. So he tries to make all these alliances. And God answers back in judgment. And he says, well, because of that, I'm going to send the king of Assyria, the Assyrians, to come, and they are going to invade your territory, and because you didn't trust. And I'm going to use them to draw my people back to me, to trust in me. So fast forward a few decades, and this is exactly what happens with King Hezekiah. And again, Hezekiah is the mirror to his father. Is he going to put his trust in foreign nations or other gods like his dad Ahaz did, or will he trust in Yahweh? And in the same place, talking to the same prophet, Hezekiah puts his trust in Yahweh, and Yahweh delivers Jerusalem. Not only that, our God does not like to be mocked. And so he deals with the king of Assyria and delivers the people of Jerusalem. And for centuries, scholars have debated how this is possible, because this guy and his army were the biggest in the area at the time. This happened at 701 BC, and prior to this, this same king had basically been going through the whole region, just conquering kingdoms left and right and just wiping them all out in the most crazy, destructive ways. And he comes to Jerusalem and he's foiled. And we have documentation, numerous documentations, not just from the Bible, but from a Greek scholar who was alive at the time, Herodotus, and Assyria's own sort of records, their annals. Here's a picture of it's called a stele, a rock that has inscriptions of their history on it. And on this, and in Herodotus' own work, it agrees with what the Bible said, that while he was camped outside of Jerusalem with his army, some sort of divine thing happened, and 185,000 of his soldiers were wiped out. Whether this is a plague, another ancient writer thought it was like a plague of mice, some thought it was disease, but the Assyrian, the Jewish, and this Greek scholar, this Greek historian's accounts all say the same thing, that it was divine intervention, that the strong army was camped, they were sleeping, they were well poised to win, and something divine happened, and most of the army had been wiped out. And Sennacherib turns and he runs away from Jerusalem and he leaves it alone. Later, going home to his home country, where he goes into his own temple, and just like the prophet says, he is killed by his own family with the sword. And so this is one of those things that certainly there's this theological history of trying to interpret this historical event through the lens of faith, which modern scholars would just toss out and say that can't possibly be true because it's not an accurate reflection of what actually happened. But history proves that it is exactly what happened. We have all this ancient documentation that agrees with the Bible's picture of things. And the message of it all is that again, this parallel, which sort of king, which sort of person will you be? The person that when you're faced with incredible odds stacked against you, this king who had been ravaging through the country and taking even your own sort of people away from you, were you going to just cower in fear and say, okay, I'll just do what you want? Are you going to turn to other gods? Or in light of the impossible, will you turn to God, saying, God, I can't do anything, this is overwhelming, and yet, even when everything is against me, I will trust you. Hezekiah does, and God delivers. And I think the reminder for us in this passage is the question, what sort of trust will we have? What will we trust in when everything goes to pot? That is the question I'll leave you with, and we'll see you later. Bye.